You shouldn't have bitten Dad, kiddo.
He was going to hurt her. He killed her.
I suppose we just kept you around too long. Let you get old. I started to forget you were one of them.
I thought we were friends.
Dad tried to tell me, but I had to be right. I forgot what you thought. I won't forget again. Come now, Pat. Enough.
Tasty little roadkill. If it happened naturally, I'd turn on the grill. From the speedy little roadhogs, from pheasants, partridge, badgers, pigeons, quail or a fox. Oh, I don't think I care at all.
Woo! So, people, there we have it. Still hits hard. 40-year-old vegan says it hits hard. Yeah, it still hit hard to me. It's still got my adrenaline going now watching that. But let's bring on Scott and let's bring on Sky, and we have someone in in backstage, LC, is that someone to do with you, Scott? LC.
No, I don't think so. Hello. No.
I don't know who it is. Oh, they've gone. They've gone. Whoever it was. There's nobody in your production with the initials LC. I don't know where they got the link.
Oh,
from.
yeah, possibly. Yeah, Lewis Coates actually.
Oh, if it's Lewis, if you want to give him a message, if he wants to jump back on, but I didn't know who it was. We thought we'd been infiltrated by non-vegan.
You shared you.
Let me see. He didn't. I didn't think he could make it.
Powerful, right? I mean, that was I think 40-year-old vegan says it right. It hits hard.
You're very loud, Sky.
Am I very loud?
Yeah, you're very loud. We can't.
I'm American.
We can't have Americans being too loud.
Let me turn down the gain on my.
Oh, bless you. So, Scott Milligan, you're the creator. You wrote this?
I did, yes. Yes, it was the original concept came from my noggin, yep.
Yeah, you directed it?
I didn't know. No, a chap called Chapman directed it. I basically put a timeline idea of the end concept forward and pitched it to originally the director of photography first, because he was on the fence as to whether he should be doing that or directing, and then he brought Brett in to write the script.
So, Sky, what are your thoughts on that then? What can you make from it?
I loved a few things. And as the creator, maybe you can speak to this, because there's a narrative about the generational kind of inheritance of this cruelty, which I think is apparent from they close up on the very old man, and then there's the older gentleman, and then the youth that's just getting in. Yeah. And so you have this inherited system of oppression, but then there's something going on with Kiddo, where Kiddo, named as a child, right, we're infantilizing the adults, and then but she's also the older, who is kind of almost like a Judas goat leading. It's almost there's a similarity there.
That's what I wanted to ask you, Scott. Yeah, I agree with this, guys. So Kiddo was the one who helps with the illusion and gives them that security to get off the bus and go to the slaughter.
Right. So originally we wrote Lewis is coming in just on the bus at the moment. He's on the. Ironically, the producer is actually on the bus at the moment. Yeah, I think he's going to try and join, which is cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So originally it was going to be a family in a SUV rather than a whole bus. But as we kind of evolved, we wanted it to be bigger and more grand, and maybe more representative of what an abattoir truck or a death truck, whatever you want to call it, would be like. But at the same time, I felt that it would be interesting if you could have a much older animal, played by Kiddo, to be on the bus to maybe increase the kind of the curiosity of both the audience, but also the jumpsuits, the pink jumpsuits on the bus as well. So she's basically a pet. She's been a pet in the family for some time, and I've heard since that is quite common for a farmer to take a shine to an animal and keep them and let them grow up and be part of the family, as it were. Not necessarily sharing dinner and being at the dining room table as such. Sure. But then if you think about a dog or a cat, a pet, then they probably would do. So the relationship that Jasper, who's the middle, the youngest, if you like, of the farm, and one's going to inherit the farm, he's grown up with Kiddo all his life and thought that she would always be around, but there's just a decision that it was her time and that she should join too. So if you think about it, Kiddo has been looking through the window at the activity of all this busload of ostensibly children going off and never coming back, and not really knowing why, and not having the ability to ask why either. So I just thought it made the story maybe more interesting. And I think certainly from seeing all the comments that we've had so far, people have gone, why was there an older woman on the bus? What was her part in the whole thing? Yeah. So I think that increases the intrigue really through the journey to Wonderland, because they think they're going to a theme park, which was always their original concept, was that they all think they're going out for a nice day out,
Right.
You know, because nobody, a little bit like your own mortality, nobody really knows what happens when you leave the farm, essentially. So there was some parallels there with our own humanity.
I
But
mean, sorry, go on, Sky.
that theme of inflicted trauma on the youth, I think, carries with both species, as it were, for these in the film, where Jasper is a victim as well, isn't he? He's being forced to do things.
Absolutely, and he's got a real part to play in. We're toying with the idea of whether it should be a feature or it should be a series, but he's going to be a really strong character all the way through the story, because I'm trying to reflect on what it must be like to be a 20-something young farmer nowadays, with the pressures that are on them to be more environmentally friendly, more ethical, and perhaps, you know, I'm sure it isn't uncommon for a person to be born into a family that does something that they don't agree with, but having to deal with not only dad but also granddad.
And he's so optimistic. He has that optimism of youth where he's like, I can change his mind. I can make a difference. He thinks he can save her. And so I wrote down, like, why does Kiddo have to die? Why was the decision? Is it to teach Jasper the lesson? Is it because she's just spent? I mean, why does Kiddo need to die in this story?
I mean, you look at people who have dogs that bite the kids. Okay,
well, that's the excuse.
So
in
there's
the
a lot
end,
of dog
though.
attacks. Yeah, there's a lot of dog attacks. But so what are you saying, Sky?
Well, the decision to kill her came before she did the crime that she's eventually executed for, right? Like she bit the dad, but she was going to die anyway. Why does Kiddo need to die? Story purposes. What's the motivation to kill Kiddo? Is it just to teach Jasper the lesson that this is the way things are and he better learn? I mean,
I think so. I mean, there are still loose ends that I'm writing at the moment about whether she does actually die or not. And also B, why it was on that day that it was decided that she needed to go. My original thoughts were that, you know, there's a lot of farms out there now that are diversifying into new areas, and they've got this you know, I don't know what the word is, but they've got a 100 or so animals that they need to get rid of because they're not going to do it anymore. It's going to be, you know,
liability.
So they have to get rid of them, and that would also include the older animal too. So I think I'm pretty resolved on the story, but as to I'm 99% sure that she doesn't die, and she plays a really important part in the story too. And it's her relationship with Jasper that evolves through the storyline.
So I mean, let's get the elephant out of the room. So this is obviously about pigs, hence the pink jumpsuits. But we can apply this to any branch of animal abuse that goes on in the world, including animal testing. We've got the MBR beagles who are shipped out at 3,000 puppies a time, trained to take masks over the noses and all these horrible things. It could be sheep, it could be cows, it could be horses, it could be anything that we do. So it's a really good metaphor for the whole industry. I'm going to throw some comments up like I have been doing now, Scott. There's a few questions, a lot of great comments about it. Wow.
Yeah, thank you everybody for that.
Well, if we're doing that, I've got a list of things I just loved about it. Can I?
Yeah, sure, mate.
Sure. Well, I love the color grading. It's like all gray on the bus, and then it's all dark and red in the abattoir, the slaughterhouse, and how it's homey and earthy at the house. And I just loved the three different scenes and the way the color grading was working there. I love the footprints on the concrete into the abattoir. It reminds you of like a school where they would show where the kids go, so you know that this is the path that's always been. This is so how many people have gone down this road a million times, you know. I love that. And then the footprints end where the one dies, where the young one is dead. The footprints lead just to that, and there's no more footprints.
You're very observant, Scott.
You are very
brilliant.
Yeah, you are.
I like film.
I tell you what, there's one thing that was quite ironic about the abattoir, because it's in an old kind of warehouse up north in the north of England, and I had to check out quite quickly to the green room because I needed a wee, And when there's lots of waiting around in making a film, as I'm sure you're aware. So when I'm walking back to it, I could hear hundreds of children screaming, and I thought, oh, they've already started shooting the scenes. I'm missing something. I started to rush, thinking, I've missed them, so I might not even be able to go in while they're shooting because of because the doors are big, heavy things. And it actually turned out that they weren't shooting a scene. There was a junior school, a primary school next door to the factory, and they were all just playing. But they, kids scream and they play, and it's the sounds, the same thing. I just thought, yeah, well, I think we're pretty spot on with what we're trying to do, because even as the creator I was tripped up by the sound effects that were real versus what was actually happening in the film. So.
The sound design in the film too. I read recently that horror movies often use sound captured in slaughterhouses to make it scarier for us as humans watching movies about these things, like horror movies, and they'll play the sounds of animals dying to scare us more. And famously in the Chainsaw Massacre movies, they did that. And so when I heard the sounds in this, I was like, I can't tell, because I'm listening for animals when I can't tell if it's humans or animals doing the screaming.
It's very subtle how they. I mean, it's subtle and it's not subtle, obviously. But while we were approaching the time to make the film, I'd gone to my first Manchester Pig Save vigil, which is actually where I met Mr. Grumpy Vegan Granddad,
the illustrious.
Danny. And the first time I went there, I interviewed a chap, and we were around the back of the abattoir, and I recorded the sounds then. I gave them. So, do you know what? I haven't actually asked him whether he used it or not, but there was a particularly long, very horrific sounding sounds of the pigs being gassed, which will never leave me, because it was a sustained struggle. Sound. It was like they were being electrocuted. It'll haunt me forever. I'll never forget that sound. So I'm sure that he would have put that in there. But there was a mixture of animal sounds and actual these teenagers having just screaming at the top of their voices, which they recorded whilst everybody else watched.
That and the waving in the field too is so frightening to me.
So haunting. Yeah. That was actually the guy that did the clapperboard on the right. Darshan is the lad on the right, and the girl on the left, her name's AI. She was the behind the scenes photographer, and she kind of shadowed the shoot for the 4 days. So they just said
horror movie stuff.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
I
know.
Yeah,
it's really horrific. Yeah.
Not Your Mum, Not Your Milk. Andy is a really good animal activist, very active on TikTok. It's a very good piece, really well done and made. What's the end song? Because a lot of people don't know you're actually a songwriter and you sing as well.
Yeah, that's where I started really. So the third album is called Kiddo also, and that was. I was looking for some kind of a theme for the album, and after seeing driving past an abattoir truck, and thinking of that very simplistic metaphor of what if it was me with my family, I decided that's what I was going to underpin the whole thing on. I'd recently become vegetarian too, which I'm now vegan, but it was just. Yeah, and I felt I've always wanted to do produce music that had some depth to it rather than just happy songs. So
and your band is Kitten Pyramid, is that
Kitten Pyramid? Yeah. We've been going for about sort of 15 odd years. But the track Roadhog is just basically about just trying to think about what people think about when they decide they're not going to eat meat anymore. And if there were any kind of angles that they could go for, and one was like, well, if I eat roadkill, which I think some people do. Because they think that's okay, and so tasty little roadkill. If it happened naturally, I'll turn on the grill.
It's funny. Once you know about those trucks, you can't ever not spot them on the motorway. They always catch your eye. It's really weird. How was it funded, Scott?
Okay, so I funded it personally, so I'm the executive producer, and. Yeah, and it's as simple as that, really. I didn't look for funding anywhere else. I mean, one of the positive outcomes of Spotify just basically removing any opportunities for artists such as myself to make any money, was that if you are going to do something and self-fund, you don't actually have to be answerable to anyone. You have autonomy. It's the silver lining, really, if it on the basis of not being, remunerated the way musicians used to be. So I raised the funding myself, and it was double what I expected it to be by the time we got there. But we just but it was one of those things really where it was quite a strange experience, because I approached Jordan, the director of photography, that was potentially going to be the director at the time, and I said, look, I want to make this film. Just give me a ballpark figure of what you think it would be to make. And he was shooting very low every time. The figure was quite low, and I was like, okay, well, because first of all, he said to me, what's your budget? And I gave him a low, from and to. And I said, if it goes to the high end, I'm going to have to start selling things. But, let's just see what happens. But when we got to the 50% mark of what it actually it started off being, he was saying, there's a lot of this stuff we're going to have to call in a lot of favors. A lot of people are going to have to be working for free. And I said, look, I don't want to feel that is how the film is going to be made. And I know people love making film and being involved in making film, and it's a stepping stone to the bigger things. So that's all fine. But I also want people to feel like they're being paid fairly. So it then doubled, which was fine, because I still think it was really good value for money for what that was achieved. And it's a beautiful piece of work. I think I caught the artists, the filmmakers, just at the right time, where they hadn't made a horror before, but they had a burning desire to make a horror. They'd been thinking about style, the styles that they wanted to make, but hadn't had an opportunity or maybe budget for that type of a film before. So I just feel very lucky that the timing was just right, really. So they gave it their all, and it's funny you mentioned Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That was one of the things that myself and the director almost said at the same time. We wanted it to feel like that sort of
it does.
Very, very independent movie, but this intangible kind of.
And Sky, you said about the color grading, right? There was no color grading on that. That's what it's like in the north. I keep telling you, in the north of England, that's what it's like. There was no color grading on it.
Well,
the water.
On the bus, that was the area that Jordan was particularly concerned about, because obviously it's moving, so he's having to work around with his camera whilst it was moving, and also there's so much light shining through that coach as well, because it's a big old 1960s coach. So there was lots of concerns, and he was hoping for quite a grey, rainy British day, and actually it was a blue sky, beautiful day. So it was
Sod's bloody
of course,
law, man.
Of course,
Sod's
yeah.
bloody law.
Yeah.
I love that too, but the 60s, sometimes things seem so old, they seem like out of time, right? Like the 60s coach, and then at some point in the slaughterhouse, there's also, it looks like an old 50s or 60s, like a Studebaker or something.
You're very observant. You're the only person that's actually mentioned that as well. And it's one of those things where it was just this gift horse that was presented to the crew when they there was some confusion as to when we were actually going to be filming. So a few days before they got there, and it was absolutely full to the rafters with boxes. And they were like, we are going to be shooting in a couple of days. And they were like, oh yeah, okay. So they ripped everything out. But whilst they were doing, they went, what are you doing with that car? And they went, well, we'll just drive it out, shall we? Went, do you know what? Just keep it in. No reason why it should be there.
Well, it adds a bit of style, and it's like, what is that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's why they kept it. It was just like, it's just such a cool thing.
And when there's old stuff like that about it, then it tends to make a story timeless, because you could tell that this is kind of it's a fantasy world, right? This is an alternate reality, but it gives us this anchor of something from our past, that something really familiar is there, and so it makes everything a bit realer. You know what I mean?
That's the thing. You see, this is the thing about I always watch films and I see when they bring out the mobile phone.
Yeah,
and you can instantly date it. You go into the cop's office, and there's not one single computer in the 80s like TV cop shows, and so things from the past. I mean, Back to the Future. Now you look at Back to the Future, and it's like, what a Walkman! It's like Walkman. It's crazy. So you got to be very careful. 40-year-old vegan in Canada says, Scott, how could we get one started if they wanted to create their own short film? Could you walk us through some of those steps?
I mean, I've procrastinated over making a film for a good 20 years. I've wanted to make one for a really, really long time. And I think one of the reasons why I procrastinated so much was I didn't feel my story was strong enough. But when I came up with the concept of simply a family going to what they think is a theme park, because the sounds of the roller coasters could be confused with the sounds of machinery in an abattoir. And I just thought, that's so simple. I think I can make a film out of that. And it doesn't seem very complicated either to make. So I think, you know, before you make sure your story is as watertight as it possibly can be, and then just find amazing people, and just hopefully you're lucky, because I certainly felt I was. I think I simply did a search, filmmakers in the Peak District, and found Jordan Carroll almost instantly. I looked at his work and it was exactly how I wanted to. I'm a massive fan of American Werewolf in London.
That's a good one.
And the whole Britishness, the color of it, the grading, everything. I just think it's obviously a timeless classic. So
Stay off the moors.
Stay off.
Don't go on them moors.
Why is there a star on that wall? Yeah, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think, and I do feel very lucky, because through Jordan's connections, he then brought in a producer and a director, and all the set designers and crew, and they'd all work together because they're all kind of Sheffield based. There's a really strong indie filmmaking contingent in Sheffield in the north. So they all went, yeah, we'd love to be in this film. I didn't realize how many fans there were of just the horror genre, because I didn't really, that hadn't twigged with me per se with the film.
Well, horror genre is everything now, though, Scott, because there's no middle budget movies being made. So
Correct.
if a director wants to get his bones and be out there, he's got to make she has to make a horror movie. That's why we're seeing horror movies in the movie theaters all the time. In the cinema, almost every week there's a new horror movie opening, but there's very little comedy. There's like no comedy in cinema. That's all on Netflix now.
That's true, yeah.
You know, because it's low enough budget. Almost every horror movie is actually in that low budget area. That's why Megan's becoming such a big sensation right now.
Wow, yeah. I haven't seen that. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, it's PG. It's kind of like I think it could have gone for the R and done a little bit more, been a bit scarier, but it was quite good.
Cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Did the cast, were the cast vegan, or any of the cast vegan?
That was my next. Was the set vegan? Like, how vegan was the production?
And did any of them sort of look at it, vegetarianism or veganism, after you relayed the story to them? How did you cast them?
Well, I didn't cast them. I was the guy in the corner just watching everything like a kid in a sweet shop, really, to be honest with you. As far as I was,
they were well cast. I did like the casting.
They were incredible, and that's the guy that was on the bus trying to like get involved with us there. The producer and Brett both had people that they had met in the past that they felt would be perfect for the film. So certainly Kiddo and Bev the father, I believe, and also Jasper. Actually, I think Brett, the director, had worked with all three of those. So you know, it was yeah. So as far as the core cast, if you want to call them that, was basically the director and producer had already earmarked them. The rest of the bus were the SAs were recruited by one company that just could find lots of those people of that sort of age.
SAs are supporting artists, if anybody wants to know. Your friend has disappeared. I don't know whether they...
He just wanted to look. I didn't think he wanted to be involved.
Right,
because he was on a bus.
Well,
in answer to your question,
welcome.
Sorry, in answer to your question about whether they were veggie or vegetarian, vegan, some were, some weren't. The job was hard enough to get everyone involved in it to not. We made the film as eco-friendly as possible. So it's got the stamp at the end, which so our carbon footprint was zero. There was a lot of leather boots being worn on the day, which I at the time, there was so many things being involved that it was a tough one. I know Danny's had issue with that when on set, refusing to wear them. All I would say is
I'll
that
just caveat to that. I did offer to wear used boots. I wouldn't wear brand
Yeah.
new ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We certainly didn't buy anything that was animal based for the set, for sure. But I have had, interestingly, people that weren't vegetarian or vegan saying that they now have become that as a result of making the film, and the cognitive dissonance
Really?
thing starting to drop. Yeah, which I'm
Wow.
really pleased with. My daughter that's actually in the film is starting to switch, but what wasn't at the time. So which
I
was
love
a
that.
bit bizarre.
You hear about people like James Cromwell. That's how he went vegan. He did Babe, and he spent all
Right.
that time with that pig.
Absolutely, he's a
several
massive
pigs.
activist now, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. A very important activist. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
all
I
because
would
he was
have
in a
loved him
movie
as
with
the
a pig.
farmer.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He was on
Um,
actually on my original script. He was on there as the potential farmer. Bev, who plays Toby, who plays Bev, wouldn't mind me saying that. But yeah, no, there's
Good person to be
definite
compared to.
that. Yeah, exactly. And they, some have been lifetime vegetarians too. But we certainly didn't say, "Are you?" When they had all the lunches, break times were all vegan. So
That's what I was waiting for, because
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
so
sure.
important. I work on a series called Holding. It's a comedy series, and we have everyone on the crew is vegan, but the on-screen talent isn't always.
Right.
But all the food that we provide, all of the wardrobe, the costuming, all of that's vegan. So
Yeah.
it's like you're trying to. I can't force every actor to be vegan,
Right.
right? But we're gonna be vegan when we're on set. It's a vegan production.
I mean,
We-
Scott didn't have much of a choice, really, because obviously you're on a budget, and it just leads me to a question I wanted to ask you. Now, is there anything in hindsight now, if maybe you would have had more money, you would have done differently? Because I had a little idea, and I thought about the pigs and how they go into a gas chamber, and I thought it would have been really cool to have a Ferris wheel, and as the Ferris wheel goes down, you know what I'm saying. You know what
Jesus.
I'm,
Yeah, you're
so-
going in like
so
Saw territory.
it's just
another
like that
horror
would
movie.
have been so it would have been amazing.
Well-
but is there anything with hindsight now, or if you'd had a bigger budget, you might have? Is there
Well,
anything you had to cut out of it? Sorry.
No, there was the thing about it was because when we revisited it and we more or less doubled the budget, everybody seemed really happy. And I remember seeing the face of the set director, designer that I was sat with for the first time, and she didn't know the budget that she had to play with, and literally her jaw hit the ground. She hadn't had that much money to play with before for this type of a film. I think if I had more money, I would definitely have given they probably won't thank me for saying this, but certainly the director, the producer, and the director of photography, I would have given them more money than they received, because even though the budget was big, their actual part wasn't. I didn't feel like it was proportionate. The essays all worked for free. A lot of the money was going into hiring of equipment, clothing, and all that kind of
And
stuff.
that's
Really.
and a lot of people don't realise. I mean, if you were to pay the minimum actor's fee of £200 to £300 a day, and an SA's average fee of £80 to £100 a day, you're talking tens of thousands straight away.
Yeah,
just for the cast. It's just people don't realise how much things cost. Hiring your equipment, your cameras can cost thousands a day to hire.
Sure.
But one of my answers to 40-year-old vegan is, listen, you don't need to go down the same road as Scott to do a movie. iPhones now are amazing film cameras, right? If you just look at some online tutorials about directing and making home movies, you can create a short film on your own. I've been in I think I've been in about 3 movies that have appeared online that have been shot totally on iPhones.
Yeah.
So there's
iPhones
nothing
are
stopping
amazing.
you.
Absolutely.
Also, start ugly, right? You get started with anything, activism or any of these things that people are afraid of doing.
Course.
Get out and do it, and don't be afraid. Like your first videos are your worst videos. Your first activism is your worst. Your first is your worst. So just
I
get
mean,
going.
that's an amazing camera to shoot movies on. It's you know, it's all about the intent of what you want to do and the message. And if you can get that message across to people, they don't care if the film's a little bit grainy. They don't care if the sound's just a little bit off. As long as that story's there and it feeds their imagination, this is what it's all about.
I totally agree. And I think that's one of the things that was why I procrastinated as long as I did, because I bounced from, well, let's shoot it on an iPhone versus I'll need a film crew. And I kept bouncing between the two, thinking, you stop worrying about, I've always, all my albums have been recorded in recording studios rather than, on Garage. I have done a lot of work on GarageBand initially, but then I go to a recording studio because I like the old school way of, I think some of the greatest music we've ever heard, certainly historically, certainly in the 60s and the 70s, was in recording studios. And it wasn't because they had beautiful Neve desks as such to mess around with. It was just the space and time they were allowed to create. And I think that's something that you could miss a little. Everything is going at 1 million miles an hour all the time. I think tech, can give you a bit of space, and actually being in a space can, if that makes any sense at all.
Well, I love that though. Would you appreciate those spaces though, Scott? Like if you hadn't gone through, like I've done some sound stuff, and then you hear about the Quonset hut where like Elvis and all these guys, they all went to this, Johnny Cash, they all go to the Quonset hut because this space is dedicated and you can hear it. It's different. Sun Studios, I think it's called. But like, would you appreciate that if you hadn't gone through that, trying to do it yourself?
I mean, I just think, certainly at the age I'm at now, you don't get many opportunities to make any albums when you look at how long they take to make.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do it right. I completely agree. Do it on a mobile, do it on a GarageBand. It'll probably do way better anyway. A reel does better than a post. Everything is changing all of the time.
Yeah.
And one of the good things about technology certainly is that it does allow people without massive budgets to get their voice heard, for sure.
Yeah, it lowers the bar of entry for sure.
Exactly. But I do like the old school way. I mean, where I recorded all my albums is in a place called Rockfield Studios in Monmouth, where Queen and Oasis and the Stone Roses all recorded. And just being in that space is just very cathartic and gives you that room to be creative. Irony of it is the Quad studio where, say, they recorded Bohemian Rhapsody was a former a row of pigsties in a courtyard.
Oh my god!
So my album was actually recorded in ostensibly a pigsty, a farm, a pig farm.
I just want to put it out there, guys. I've put in the link to Kiddo. There is other. It is on other platforms at the moment, but this is the one you need to share because this links directly with Scott's YouTube. So if you're
please, that'd be great. Thank you.
So if you're going to share it, please use that link that I've just put in the chat there to watch it or share it. This replay will be available anyway to people, but me and Scott will talk about that after, whether I should just drop this replay after a couple of days or something.
Yeah, if you need, it's fine.
So yeah, so any more questions? 40-year-old vegan he's actually an ex inspector, slaughterhouse inspector, and he got arrested a little while ago in Canada prior to going on a Meet the Victims event where they were going to go into a farm. He actually got arrested for thinking about doing it. He actually got arrested before the crime got committed, which can only happen in Canada. So I think this is what he's talking about here. As you guys know, I have a bit of a story. I've met others who have similar backgrounds, trying with the timing and putting something together. Pre-pandemic had a buy-in, but since faded. But yeah, go for it. Just reach out to me on WhatsApp, and we can chat about it and just see where we can go with that. Any questions, people? Fire the questions out. Let's see.
I loved what you said about that roller coaster, Scott. I opened a bar under a roller coaster barn, and when the bar was closed and the roller coaster was in Las Vegas, so the roller coaster went deep into the night, and you would hear the roller coaster go by, and you can hear the people laughing and screaming as the
Yeah.
roller coaster was getting ready, and you telling me, and it was scary at night because everything's quiet, and
I
you
can
could hear
imagine.
these
Yeah.
disembodied voices. You're like, what is that? And you're like, oh, there's a roller coaster upstairs. It's the sound on this film was haunting.
Yeah, and they kept that all the way through, and even down to kind of the fairground noises as the bus approached,
Yes.
which I thought was particularly chilling. I didn't expect them to have some of the music being played when Bev comes through the sheets. I wasn't expecting that at all. But then that was because I wasn't as well versed on the horror genre as they were, and they said no, that happens quite a lot. That's quite a big thing to do to.
The
It's
guitar
weird.
music when
Yeah, because that's the song called Gobble Gobble, which I wrote, which is about families having Christmas dinner together, and the tensions of that if you didn't really want to participate.
But that
in what they
guitar
were doing.
sound is jarring, and it makes you
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely the horror movies. It's like a Rob Zombie moment.
Yeah.
Bernie
Famous
V
vegan
says,
Rob
is
Zombie.
that not what some farmers do? Keep an older animal as to lead the younger trusting animals into the slaughterhouse? Really, I think some do. I think some might do. I'm not sure now, but they may use them to lead them onto the trucks. I think I've heard people do that to get
Right.
the animals to follow onto the trucks. CDA, what's the schedule for save vigils? I've put my email into the chat, mate. If you want to email me, I'll give you my phone number and I'll let you know when the vigils are. If you're thinking of coming along, it'd be nice to have you there. And you can hear what Scott heard around the back. It ain't good. Let's put it that way.
It's not good. It's not good at all.
Bernie, Judas goats. They also have trained Judas sheep to lead cows off trucks as a health and safety incentive for the workers to avoid injury.
A Judas sheep. Wow.
Judas, that's what I thought. That's what I thought Kiddo was a
No.
a Judas pig. Yeah, it's a Judas goat. They'll lead other goats into the slaughter pen, and then the Judas will leave, and they'll shut all the other ones in so that they trust, because they could smell the death, but they trust this one who's older, and they follow.
Wow. Well, I might weave that into my story then, because I'd never heard of that.
The footage of the Judas goat is heartbreaking.
But inside the slaughterhouses now, on a similar thing, they've got hydraulic walls now. They've got a hydraulic wall that pushes the animals in front of the gas chamber, then a hydraulic wall to push them into the gas chamber. I've seen that firsthand. So it's again like the three buttons at the executions, the prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
No one ever knows which one pressed the button to kill them. So yeah, it's taking that responsibility away from the people who do all this barbaric stuff
through machines, using the machine to separate us from our humanity. It's disgusting. This pushing of the buttons. They took out the gas chambers and they made gas chambers illegal, but they were still doing the lethal injection in California in the old gas chambers, and now they've dismantled all of them so that there's no longer executions in California. We still have it's still on the books, but we have no place to do it. So they've essentially rendered it impossible to carry out the sentences. But when they showed these chambers being dismantled and all of the effort that goes into, okay, well, you push that button and he pushes this button, and this one makes the prisoner not feel anything or paralyzes the prisoner, and all of these things. We do the same thing with animals, and it's disgusting
all the time. Yeah, exactly. It's very hard to kind of, I find, to engage with people knowing that as well as I now know it. Because when I decided to make the film, I thought, right, I'm going to be having conversations like we're having now in a year's time potentially, and I need to know my onions. So Richard from the Vegetarian Society became my kind of mentor, and we talked through all of these things. And the more information I got, the more and more difficult it is then to be calm and rational when you're debating about the subject, because when you know the full truth, it's very hard to kind of well, you make your decisions. That's all fine.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah,
that's okay.
I guess we'll just agree to disagree.
I understand, because you think, how can you, now you know the truth,
right?
How can you go back?
Yeah, Scott, I've been saying for years that if I can't be friends with you, if you can watch the chicks go into the macerator on their first day of life, the male chicks going into the macerator and still eat eggs, I'm sorry. Like if you can watch that and be like, oh, all right, I'll have an omelet right after that. I'm sorry. Like you don't meet the criterion to be my friend. I'm sorry. Like
I totally agree. But I think also at the same time, I think sometimes when I've got this event that I'm running at the moment called World Pig Week, which started on the 29th and it finishes on the 4th. And the Vegetarian Society and the Animal Save Movement have been really gracious with reposting a lot of stuff. So it's what my point is. There's been a lot of comments and discussions been taking place, and I've been surprised how there's lots of preaching to the converted. So the vegans going, yes, it's terrible, this is awful, and how can they do this, that, and that? And then you'll have somebody going, oh, it's made me really hungry, I want to eat a bacon sandwich now.
right.
And I really want to engage with those people more than just slapping each other on the back saying, yes, we're absolutely right on what we're doing, because I have this feeling that the people that are saying that, it's not necessarily a cry for help, but I think you can talk to them rationally. And I actually told off a couple of vegans for being name calling, because I just thought, well, that you're not helping the argument. You know, just if a person says they want to eat a bacon sandwich every day now that they've seen the film, why don't you just give them a bit of dietary information about how bad that could be for them, and how the World Health Organization is basically saying you shouldn't do that, you know, and maybe they don't know that.
I mean, I talk a big talk about, like, I mean, all vegans I'm involved in. I'm sure if I open up my phone, there's a bunch of threads waiting for me to respond to that I'm of stuff like that, right? Constant. Dan goes through the same thing. He does his TikTok where he responds to horrible comments. It's not that I don't want to engage. I still engage. I still do outreach. But it's like, I'm not going to invite you over to my house. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I know what you mean. And also, you guys have been doing it a hell of a lot longer than I have. So I'm still kind of like, I'm going to have a chat with this person and see if I can. I'm sure in a year's time, I'll be like, shut down.
Mate, no. Don't ever be discouraged. Sky says something, right, that I don't agree with. And I was thinking about doing a TikTok video against him on this.
Do it.
And he says that he won't accept any new non-vegan friends, right?
Yep. No
and
new non-vegan
I think that's totally wrong. I think that is totally wrong. What better friend to have to show you how great your food is, how great your lifestyle is to friends who are not vegan? What better way to introduce them? And we don't face non-vegans enough in this world. And we need things like Kiddo and stuff like that we can put on there.
That was the whole point of Kiddo. So, sorry to interrupt, but that was the whole point of it. It was that I didn't want it to be a judgmental, finger-proddy, graphic horror that would only really resonate with the people that knew the truth of it all. I wanted people to watch the film and think, what's this about? Why are there children on the bus? Because that sparks off a conversation, because they're too old, really. If it's an accurate depiction of how old pigs are, they're 10 years too old.
Months.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, much older, actually. Much too old. But we couldn't logistically get a bus full of 6-month-old children on the bus without it being quite difficult. But no, I think the idea of story, you know, has been proven as a way of being able to communicate without. I do switch off a little bit when I'm, you know, I know I just quoted the World Health Organization, but statistics. I was talking to an interview with Dan about, which I'm going to release soon, which is I do get a bit blind to stats, and I do consider myself quite ordinary and like everyone else. But I do get sucked into stories. You know, I mean, I think everybody sits down and watches Netflix and Disney,
because the stories tell you fundamental truths. The thing that's great about Kiddo is that you have these fundamental truths that are revealed.
It's stealthily done. It leads you into false sense of security.
And the story extends on, and I'm so excited for somebody's just asked when your next film will be out.
This is what I wanted to ask you, Scott, by the way.
I think it's going to be a series. I've written 5 parts that will all be 15 minutes long, which would make it about, you know,
almost feature length.
And I'd just like to say to people that Scott has actually suggested a role for me. Right. And what he's told me about this role, you can see how he's laughing uncomfortably, right?
I am a little, yes.
I'm not going to give anything away, but what he's asked me to do is like the lowest of the low. It is like,
you should be used to that.
Mate, believe me,
so not too much of a departure.
If I do
It's
this,
a good fit.
if I get this role, right, because I'm going to audition for it, because obviously Scott, it's out of Scott's hands. You know, he
Yes.
can put me forward, but I can only audition for it. But if I get this role, I can guarantee if it airs to enough people, right, I will be shot, hung and quartered the minute I walk out my front door, because this is another level.
Well,
Honestly.
there was. It was one of the things that you and I were talking about. I'd said I tripped up on a phrase that I used, which was, nothing should be killed. And you went, what do you mean thing? You mean people, human? You were trying to say that we're all the same animal.
Yeah, I think you said it as well.
Yeah. And then you went to quite graphically describe what happens to, the fact that animals are, sexually abused, essentially. So yeah, after your tirade, which I will be cutting from the film because you destroyed me. But it did make me. It certainly did resonate with me for a while afterwards. And I thought, when I'd got a story my mum had told me about what a guy had done to an animal. When he told me when I was a child, and it obviously it stuck with me forever. So I wanted to sew that into the film, and I just thought that Danny was the man.
Well, Danny's right. It's worse than sexual abuse, though. It's sexual exploitation because it's purely for profit, and it's the worst thing ever.
It's a rape. The rack that they use to put cows in is they call it, the farmers, the harmers call it a rape rack.
They do. I'm saying that the motivation of that rape for profit is somehow more sickening. It's so disgusting.
The whole industry is based on abusing female sexual organs for profit. The whole industry. There's no escaping it. The males get off lightly. They get shot and killed straight away. They don't have to go through this torture. Oh, don't set me off again. Right,
Calm down. Well, let me set you off a little bit differently, because I don't think I need to seek out new carny friends, because the whole world is speciesist already. I already live in a speciesist world. I don't need to go seeking out new friends who aren't vegan. I already have, they're everywhere. I have old friends who are vegan who just are grandfathered in because I've known them so long. I'm surrounded by speciesists all the time. I don't need to intentionally make friends in my adulthood with people that I think are sexually abusing and exploiting other species. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I totally, and I'm struggling with that myself now.
It's difficult. You almost have to be like, with the way I'm doing it, I'm like, all right, if I've known you for a lot of years, you're just going to have to put up with me talking about it all the time. And if you could do that, you could stay my friend. But from now on, from this moment on, all new friends are going to have to be vegan. You could get into the lobby, but you can't come up to the rooms. You can't come to the suite.
Yeah, you sit in your little friendly, safe circle talking to your fellow vegans then, while the rest of us...
Everyone always says that,
while the rest of us deal with the non-vegans, because...
But I still do tons of outreach. I'm doing a protest in 2 weeks' time. In a fortnight, I'll be doing a protest against the Jim Henson Company. I'm constantly online every single day. I do lives every day. I do outreach every day. I'm on every platform.
Friends have your trust. Friends trust what you say. Friends don't question your honesty. You're wrong, Sky, and you will never win me over on this argument. Never.
I'm not going to actively make new friends that are non-vegans.
I think we should respect.
Where's Race Lever? Race Lever, I haven't seen him forever. I haven't seen that guy. He always cracks me up. I miss his humor. He's always the funny one. He said that Kiddo 2 should be called the Jesus Goat. I think that's funny.
I think the Judas animal that seed's been firmly planted in my brain to put into the story.
Even the
definitely,
it's widely known as
we could do a Bible story.
The
rape rat. Yeah, we could do a Bible story, couldn't we? We could do like a life of Brian. We could just do something. Right, listen, we've been at it for 1 hour, 10 minutes now. The last 10 minutes, we're going to wrap it up soon.
Can I ask about the fucking idiot song? Because that
of course you can. Go for it.
The I'm a fucking idiot, I think, is such an interesting song to start the movie out with, because like they don't know what's coming, I guess. That's what makes them fucking idiots, and they're all singing it. I don't know.
I wrote that song with a friend of mine who's an illustrator, and we were in a car on the way to Cardiff, and we basically we got the rhythm of the words together, and then it developed into a song. The beginning, when you listen to the actual track off the album, the voice at the beginning is actually me typing in those words into Google, and the words coming out of Google as the female saying those words. So it sounds robotic, but it's actually just Google, which I thought was very cool.
Oh my gosh, that's like Flarf poetry. That's
I wanted it to be at the beginning of the film, but I not really with the intention of the animals being fucking idiots, just that they were. I felt that it was a song that resonated with them about humans, but I hadn't thought about it too and they liked it because they frankly thought they probably were. But what they think about the farmers and the relationships, I'm still developing that deeper, as to, because if Kiddo does go back, she now has the knowledge, and she's going to be played by all the other mans. What fucking happened there? And so yeah, I'm playing. I've written broad, like a bulleted list of what happens in each chapter, if you like, but then I'm developing the characters and what they say to each other. But that track definitely was. I said I definitely want Kiddo at the beginning, and I definitely want Roadhog at the end. And that was, and I said, if you can do that for the film, I'll be a happy guy.
That's just the song they sing on the bus on their way to slaughter. I mean, what an amazing song to be singing. I mean, everything about it I love. And
well,
the way
we are all idiots, we are all idiots.
Yeah.
We could be doing other things with our time. I mean, I know we're activists and we're trying to use our time as wisely as possible. We're still ostensibly idiots, I think. At our core, all humans are largely
full of sound and fury.
Yeah, because we choose to do what we do with the time this finite time we have.
We are idiots because we're destroying our planet right in front of us. We're stopping using plastic bags and straws because it hurts fish, but it doesn't matter about catching and eating fish, but we want to stop using plastic straws because it hurts fish. So, it's just, we're fucking idiots. We definitely are fucking idiots. This comes off the back of my family. None of my family are vegan, Scott. Is your family vegan?
My wife is. I have two daughters that live with me that aren't. They're trialing vegetarianism to varying degrees. So they eat like the Richmond vegan sausages and really like them, but then they'll have a KFC, unfortunately. So
I didn't ban you, race leader. I'm sorry.
I'm trying, but I do get fairly kind of chastised for going on about it a lot too. So my dad and his wife are trying, and to be, certainly when we go to eat with them, they give us vegetarian vegan options. I think Danny's the same. It's
it's hard with family. They don't listen.
It's hard. It's hard, and I live in an area of the UK where it's still black pudding and greyhounds and whippets, and Scott knows it well. Scott knows the north well. He's in the north, So,
whippets, like the dog. You guys are eating whippets.
Yeah. No, we race them. We race them. Lurchers,
not for a while.
Horse riding. It's all.
You guys do dog racing still, don't you?
Yes, we do. Greyhound racing, yeah.
Oh my God.
Do you have a website, Scott, that people can take a look at everything about you, your songs?
Yeah. kittenpyramid.co.uk or .com both work, and it's all on there. And you can find all the links to Instagram, Facebook, and all that kind of stuff. So
kittenpyramid.co.uk or .com?
Kitten Pyramid, both the logo of your band looks like the Pyramid Brewing Company.
It is. It's the Bass. Literally,
it's the Bass logo.
Yeah, there's like a mile away from where I live is Burton-on-Trent, where Bass was brewed originally, and it was the first ever trademark. So I decided to bastardize that for the band. Yeah,
the first ever trademark. Screw you, trademarks. We're gonna make it. I love it. That's punk rock, Scott. I love it.
I'll regret that decision, but yeah, that at the moment everybody thinks it's pretty wild that I've done that. With some concern that maybe I shouldn't do that, but I just thought, oh fuck it, let's do it.
I love it.
So this is Scott's site. Jump on there. You've got a shop, contract videos, live. You've got his music here.
What's the tie-in with Alter? Alter is somehow related to this project?
Yeah, Alter premiered it originally about a month ago. which is an ultra is a really big. It's a US based
A horror
YouTube channel. Yeah,
it's a
called
YouTube channel.
ALTARTER. And Lewis sent them the first draft of the film, a trailer, and they went, "Yep, definitely will." And it had like 50,000 views in like a 5 days or something.
That's
It was
brilliant.
crazy. Yeah, really fast.
Yeah.
And
So-
the interesting thing was it was people that loved horror rather than vegans, vegetarians, or activists or climatists, whatever you want to call them. It was just people that loved the horror genre. So the questions were really, really
I
interesting.
think this is why this will be a success. I mean, horror always toes that line. I'll watch a horror. I watched Terrifier 2, which got great reviews. It's like a slasher movie. It's very, very intense. That they had to stop filming during the pandemic, and they picked it up at the end, and it made it better somehow. But
Right.
there's a whole part where they're in a fun house that's made to look like a slaughterhouse, and it's like, I had to, right after I walk out, I'm like Googling, is the filmmaker vegan? Like, who in this production is vegan? Because somebody must be. I always, in horror movies, I'm always like, they must be vegan, because
Yeah, because the message.
I had the feeling about Sweet Tooth on Netflix. That I felt that was a vegan movie, and that was about kids that evolved into half animal, half human. And I felt that was very, very vegan centric. I've just coined a new word, I think.
It's funny how many of our values are represented in film, and yet people aren't making those connections. But I think enough do. Like you said, you're meeting people who are changing their minds after having watched Kiddo. So
sure,
I think it's a powerful tool.
It is a powerful tool. It is a powerful tool. And like I said from the beginning, anything that you see, what people tend to do is, like, if you put the Dominion out there or any other one like Seaspiracy, people know straight, oh, this is vegan propaganda, boom. But as soon as you put something like this on, you're drawn in, and before you realise what it's all about, it's disappeared.
This really is a horror movie.
Realise what it's all about, bang, you've been smacked with that message.
Yeah.
I thought you were my friends.
Well,
that's what you should get. You should get one of them, Sky. You should get one of them
they're
t-shirts.
available on the store, and all the money
friends.
all the profits that are made from the t-shirts go to a local animal sanctuary in about 5 miles from me.
I need to take you to Pigs in the Wood, by the way, Scott.
I do want to go
when
there.
you're up. I'll take you. I know the owner personally, so I'll take you up.
That. Because that's quite a common question is, well, if you stop eating, what's going to happen to all the animals? I had a comment on that in on the Vegetarian Society site. Was like, well, you're complicit to killing all of the. It was like a really weird curveball, but it's a question that needs to be answered because it's quite a common one.
We should stop breeding them. I mean, that's the answer. We're not.
I think there's a concern that they'll all disappear, and that we'll be, vegans will be complicit to the extinction of all livestock if we stop eating them, which I know is absurd, obviously.
But many of those animals in the wild are already extinct. Like the last wild cow is gone. The last from the species from whence they came before we domesticated them.
I've had to research that. Thanks to TikTok, I've had to research the original cow, and it was in Syria. The original cow started off, and I've forgotten what it's called, but
they're gone.
They're gone. But
the wild horses are gone. We have feral horses now, so we have what we call wild horses, but it's not the wild animal that our horses came from. That's
But these artificially bred animals can survive. You've got the like I told you about the cows on
the island.
On the island, it's only 1.1 mile by 1.5 miles wide, and these cows have actually evolved into a brand new species of cow and have bred to a size that the island can sustain them on.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's just amazing.
We have buffalo on Catalina Island, about 23 miles off the coast of California. There's an island called Catalina. It's a famous island. They filmed lots of movies there. At one point, they filmed a movie there that had buffalo, and so they brought buffalo to film this Western, and they left them there to die. And now there is it's one of the last wild herds of buffalo on planet Earth. And they'll bring animals from other herds throughout the United States to keep the species alive so they don't inbreed,
but I mean, what a lot of people don't realize is the scale of extinction of wildlife and plants that's going on because of animal agriculture. It's something stupid like a few hundred species a day. is
Yeah.
is getting extinct, and it's like this is mind blowing stuff.
Because of rainforest destruction and habitat destruction in general. Yeah, it's horrible.
And humans in general, the biggest plague that's ever hit this planet. Right, listen, I'm going to call it there. I'm going to
All right.
say thank you to everybody who's joined the stream tonight. I appreciate you all being here. I want
Me
you
too.
to all, please, just throw this link to this that I put in this chat. Please don't use the what's it called, Scott? The altar one. Use Scott's one, Kitty Pyramid. Share it far and wide on Instagram. Cut it down into bits and put it on TikTok if you want. Just do anything you want with it. Get it out there, people. We need to get this viral because there are going to be more following along. We want to set the road ready for these other films to smash into this carny world that we're living in.
Yeah. If you want part 2, share part 1.
For sure, part 1, we'll get part 2, definitely. Thank you, Scott, for creating this.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for coming along tonight and making this a really great event for me. Thank you, Sky, for representing the US and bringing your viewers over to my side of the pond. I appreciate it. And
I love talking movies. I was such a treat for me. I
you're
appreciate
so
you.
observant, and you've been in the industry as well, Sky. So we're all in the industry. So yeah, maybe there's a part for you. Maybe you can play the animal that I'm interacting with, Scott. What do you reckon?
I've only ever done stage work. I don't know if I could. I don't think
you'll enjoy this. I'll use.
I'm not as photogenic as you. The camera doesn't love me like it loves you.
But listen, people,
it'd be
thank
interesting
you.
to have an American in the film.
There you go.
He's so ostensibly British right now. It's just where an American would fit, really.
Well, we could do a video call. It could be like the owner of it could be like the owner of MBR, because MBR Beagles is an American company that is in the UK.
Well, yeah, because isn't the slaughterhouse that the Manchester Pig Save go to, isn't that Brazilian owned?
That's Brazilian owned now. It was,
so you could have the abattoir.
But there's a long tradition. There's a long tradition of casting the American as that ruthless capitalist who.
Yeah, we don't care.
It's all about the money, don't you see?
You're a white privileged guy. We're going to use and abuse you. Listen, thank you, everybody, and catch me on the next one. Don't know where, don't know when, but it's happening. So remember, save
Next
the
Wednesday.
animals, save the planet, save yourselves, people. Go vegan.